So right now we're 1 after 7. We had scheduled this webinar to start promptly at 7 o'clock. So we'll just get started with some housekeeping details and introductions, and we'll proceed with the webinar itself, giving you content on the update for the New York Energy Solution construction efforts. My name is Shannon Baxavanis. I'm the stakeholder and communications lead for New York Transco, and I'm joined by some of my colleagues, Court Canfield, our Director of Construction, Colin Bukowski, our Community Liaison, and John Brott, one of our stakeholder outreach specialists on the project. We appreciate you taking some time out of your evening for us and getting some of the most up-to-date information on where the project stands as we look to modernize and build out the clean energy transmission network in New York. We are hosting this webinar through Zoom, as you're aware. It's scheduled for 1 hour, but will end when all of the questions have come through. We ask that you keep your device muted. And if you do have any questions or comments that you'd like to make, there is a Q&A feature within the program here, and you can send any comments or questions through that. We'll be monitoring that throughout the presentation. And then at the end, we will ask those questions, take those questions at the end. For any difficulties with the actual computer feature of the webinar, you can dial in from a phone toll free. That number is 929-436-2866. And the webinar ID is 860-6206-1865. We will make this presentation available within about 48 hours. We'll post it up on the New York Energy Solution website, which is ny-es.com. And we appreciate you joining us. So we're going to get right into it. The New York Energy Solution Project is being developed and constructed by New York Transco. New York Transco is a New York-based, New York-focused developer of an owner and operator of electric transmission assets here in New York. We're based in Hudson. We have a number of facilities that are currently active on the system today, including 345 kilovolt lines in other parts of New York that we maintain and operate. And with some additional projects that we're in the process of constructing or developing, we're aiding New York State in moving toward a clean energy system in New York and building out the resiliency and reliability of the grid. But we're going to focus specifically on one of the projects that, of course, many folks on the call are familiar with, which is the New York Energy Solution Project. That project is one of a handful of projects that are moving forward in a particular geographic area within New York that have been competitively selected through the New York Independent System Operator process. The New York System Independent Operator, or the NYSO, is the entity it's an independent entity that manages the energy markets and the bulk transmission network in New York. And we went through a competitive process to have projects selected. We were selected back in 2019, in the spring of 2019, to develop the New York Energy Solution Project. This project, along with the other projects that you see on the map, will work together to help relieve congestion and move more clean energy from upstate to other customers throughout the state. In total, the project will not only reduce that congestion and move more energy, but it will help facilitate reduced energy pricing, and overall bolster system reliability and resiliency, which we'll talk about based on the design of the New York Energy Solution Project in just a moment. So I mentioned that we're aiding the state with achieving clean energy goals. For those of you that may not be aware, New York passed legislation in 2019 called the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act that was signed into law by Governor Cuomo. And this requires the state to transition to 70% renewable energy by 2030 and 0% zero emitting energy by 2040. So our projects, along with many others across New York State, are really looking to help advance toward those goals. As you may also have heard in statistics or information out there, there's a lot of aging infrastructure on the electric delivery network. And the transmission network specifically, about 80% of the network was put into service before 1980. So it really wasn't envisioned with these clean energy goals that we're trying to achieve, and requires updates, modernization, and additional build out so that we can carry additional clean energy resources from the solar, wind, and other clean energy generators that will be across the state. For the New York Energy Solutions specifically, we're helping by removing aging infrastructure. The infrastructure that we're taking out and replacing is 80 years old. It's all within an existing transmission corridor or on utility-owned property. And it, along with the other projects that were on the prior map, will help unlock about 2,100 megawatts of clean energy. This is a 55-mile portion of that overall effort. 55 miles of transmission line modernization, taking out those 80-year-old infrastructure, 80-year-old assets within the corridor. So those are the lattice structures that you see in the corridor today, and we'll show some pictures of that in just a minute. We run from Schodack down to Pleasant Valley with this upgrade, where we're taking out the old and putting in the new, in addition to the transmission lattice towers that we're replacing with monopoles. We are also building out some of the stations along the corridor for that help of to help facilitate the flow of clean energy. At the end of the day, when we've completed construction, there will be 230 fewer transmission structures in the corridor. And the design of these, which again is a monopole design, affords more resiliency and reliability, particularly to weather severe storms or weather, which we've been seeing, of course, more of over the years. On these structures, we have two transmission circuits. One is a 115 kilovolt circuit and a new 345 kilovolt circuit, which will really help deliver that clean energy, that increase in clean energy that we mentioned. So we'll walk through all of the components of the project going north to south, but of course this is an update on construction, of which we've been in construction now for a little over a year. To get to that construction point, we had to obtain 26 permits and approvals from various entities at the federal and state level. This is a project that went through a very long review process by the New York Public Service Commission, and it goes through what's called the Article 7 permitting process, which is a comprehensive permitting effort. We completed that in 2021 in order to start construction. And since the spring of 2021, I'm proud to say that we've erected 42% of the new structures. We've energized 48% of the project, and we'll explain what that means. And really impressive for the crews that we have out there and the management that's been occurring in the field. We've had over 605,000 hours consecutive of injury-free work, which is great. Our motto is that everybody goes home the same way they came to the job, and they are sticking to those safety records, which is an impressive feat. And we are on schedule for a 2023 in-service date. And we'll continue to update folks on our in-service date as the construction progress continues. But we're proud to say that we're making really smooth progress just a little over a year into the project. So to get into the details of what the project includes, we thought we'd deliver it in the phases that it was actually approved in through the permitting process. So the phase one of our effort included establishing laydown yards. These are places where we store materials and equipment. We have crews come to assemble, and we have 2 laydown yards that are in active use and have been since the beginning of project construction. One is in Claverick off of Baker Road, and the other is in Ghent in the Falls Industrial Park. So those will be continued use until we complete project construction. And restoration efforts, we anticipate closing those up and having those restored back to their original condition in 2024. Another part of our phase one construction was the Churchtown Shoofly and the Churchtown station. The Churchtown Shoofly, again, all of this work occurring on utility-owned property. It was a temporary bypass line that we constructed in order to keep power flowing while we demolished the original Churchtown station and rebuilt it. That Shoofly was completed many, many months ago and allowed us to facilitate the construction of the Churchtown station, which has been fully rebuilt and was recently energized. So this portion of the project is all complete and energized. And here's a couple of photos to show the Churchtown station as it looks now. And if you were ever in the area, you would see, this is off of Orchard Road in Claverick. You'd see that there's even more progress that's been made, but that station is complete, energized, and in use. The picture on the right, labeled Churchtown Shoofly, showed our efforts in progress as we put up the Shoofly structures. But again, both of these assets are fully in use and energized. Getting into the transmission line work, again, we'll go north to south for the transmission line work, and this is in the phase 2 portion of our project. And you can find this graphic on our website. Again, that's ny-es.com. We did try to break down sort of the high level components of transmission line construction. And if any of you live near the corridor, you probably are seeing this happening or have seen this happen. But first we go in and flag and stake the transmission corridor. Then we go in and build access and put in protective matting, which are those wooden mats that you see throughout the right of way. We drill and install foundations. There's a few different types of foundations used on this particular project. And then we deliver the monopoles, those steel monopoles that you saw for the Shoofly picture. We deliver those in pieces to the right of way, and then they are assembled and erected on site. We have been using the old structures as a way to string wire and string the conductor. And so it should actually be that we put the conductor in first and then we've removed the old structures, but we do have this continual process. But once all of this is completed, we energize that portion of the line, and then we go back in and restore the right of way or any other area that we've impacted as a result of construction. So it's sort of a train kind of process with the crews going in and doing their job and then going out. And there may be multiple crews at different points in time doing any one of these activities. And then the next crew will come in and fill in for their portion of it. It's been going very well, as I mentioned, with the percentages that we've hit for completion. And we're pleased to showcase that completion of line work with the next several slides. So I mentioned that we did our work in phases. This is the phase 2 work, which is the bulk of the line and station work. We have a map to the right that shows the full transmission corridor with all of the 11 towns and 3 counties that the project goes through. And there's a yellow line that goes across the project. That's basically just identifying a segmentation between the northern section of the project and the southern section of the project. So the northern section of work includes a new switching station being built on utility-owned property up in Schodack. That's in active construction. And then we have the towns then that are in the green line. Those represent the towns that have been seeing 22 miles of transmission line replacement work in the existing corridor. And again, proud to say that that section has been completed and is energized, that 22-mile section in the northern portion of the project. The southern portion of the project, which goes just south of the Churchtown station, where you see that green dot in Claverick, down south to there to Pleasant Valley, that's 32 miles of transmission line replacement work, as well as 2.1 miles of transmission work on a small tap line in Livingston. This section also includes work at 2 stations, one being a new station just off of Wagner Road on utility-owned property, and then some modifications inside the fence line at the existing Pleasant Valley station. And we'll talk about those in a little bit more detail in just a moment. So I mentioned the Knickerbocker station. This is ongoing construction up in Schodack, and this will be a new switching station up in Schodack. It's off of Mitchell Road and Knickerbocker Road up in Schodack, and it's been in active construction for some time now, and we'll continue in that process. We're continuing with foundation work there. If you're in that area and drive by, you'll be able to see all the activity going on. Then from out of that station, we have the 22 miles of line work that goes down to the Churchtown station, which I mentioned is completed and energized. And here you can see a couple of pictures that showcase active construction work with the lines, the structures going up, and you can see the old structure in the foreground and the new structure going up in the background. That is complete, and you can see with the picture to the right, which is also the picture behind me, that's an example of a completed section of that 22-mile stretch. But we're pleased to say that this is all completed from the standpoint of all of the structures being up, all of the lines being strung, and the project being energized for this 22-mile portion. We do have restoration work that's ongoing in the corridor, and we won't be completely out of there yet, but we'll have all of the heavy equipment for the most part out of that section. And then as we go further south, I mentioned this 32-mile stretch from just south of the Churchtown station to Pleasant Valley. This section is a little bit of a different configuration for the corridor. Instead of a single lattice structure like the northern portion had, we actually have two lattice structures in this portion that we are removing. These lattice structures hold 4 115 kilovolt lines, and we will be putting in the single monopole in their place with a single 115 kilovolt circuit and a single 345 kilovolt circuit. And that will be that configuration. And we've started construction with putting in access and kind of getting all of that prep work ready so we can move forward for the actual line construction. So to take a bit of a closer look at the new structures that we're putting in, this is often a question we get. You can see this is a steel monopole with these two arms coming off of it. The full structure averages about 90 feet in height. The old lattice structures were about 80 feet average in height. Obviously, there's variation down the corridor depending on the terrain for the height of those. And if you're interested in the height in any particular area, our website does have mapping that includes the structure heights one by one. So that's something you could use as a resource to check out. But you can see on their two arms, the top arm's about 38 feet across and the lower arm's about 51 feet across. And you can see this is looking south. You can see on the left-hand side, that's the 115 kilovolt side, and on the right-hand side is the 345 kilovolt side. Again, all of this is within the existing transmission corridor. There's no expansion of that corridor. It's exactly how it was before in terms of size. And you can see we have an arrow toward the bottom, kind of difficult to see in this picture, but the foundation types that we're using, there's a couple of different types: direct embed, concrete drilled shaft, and it depends as we go down the right of way, the configuration that's used. But this is just a quick close look at the structure details. So that was all the main corridor work. And I mentioned that we have a small tap line in Livingston. It's a little over 2 miles of work terminating at the existing Blue Stores substation. And this corridor has the current configuration with 2 H-frame structures. We will be removing one of those structures. You can see here in the future view on the right-hand side, and replacing it with new H-frame structures with an average height increase of 15 feet, all that work staying within the existing utility corridor. And that work has started. As we continue further south, the project terminates down in Pleasant Valley at the existing Pleasant Valley substation. And this overview map is a snapshot, an aerial view of the Pleasant Valley substation down to the lower right-hand corner, as well as a quick view of the new Van Wagner station, which is up in the top right corner. We are doing that work for building the new Van Wagner station is on utility-owned property. I'll walk through the details of that in a second, but we are, just wanted to show in this that we are reconductoring, or basically it's adding new wire on the existing structures for that stretch between the Van Wagner station and down to the Pleasant Valley substation. The yellow little squares that you see on the screen represent existing transmission structures that will stay in the corridor. The red boxes represent existing structures that will be removed or have been removed. And the orange boxes represent new structures, which they're H-frame configuration. You can see a picture of them in the box labeled 1. Those have been installed in order to allow for the construction of the Van Wagner station. And again, we will be adding new wire to those existing assets in the corridor. And then down at the Pleasant Valley substation, there will be no fence line expansion. All of our work is inside the existing Pleasant Valley substation. And I'll show that in a little bit more detail in a second. So to take a closer look at the Van Wagner station, this is just right off of Van Wagner Road in Pleasant Valley. I mentioned the orange boxes being the new structures that were constructed, and you can see a view of them here, 2 in the foreground and 2 in the background. And we're building the Van Wagner station at this time, and obviously those structures have been completed. These 4 new structures are will be 95 feet tall once all of the construction is completed, which is 45 feet lower than the tallest existing structure that will remain in the corridor. The purpose for this station is to offer greater control of power movement and dispatch of resources for energy resources on the lines. And then the Pleasant Valley substation, I mentioned that this is the terminus point for the project, and we're adding new equipment in the inside the existing fence line of the Pleasant Valley substation. We're working on the Con Edison side of the station, which is the more square side of the station. The rectangular side is the Central Hudson side of the station. And if you drive by, you may see some of these white bags out in the station area. This station's right off of Route 44 and main drag in Pleasant Valley. And the purpose for these bags is just to store the dirt as we excavate the site. It's being hand excavated to allow for new equipment, and it is an active substation. So there's different precautions that we have to take for storage of materials, and this is one of them. So it's dirt that we'll reuse back on the site once that excavation is complete. I mentioned about our safety record. This is something we are incredibly proud of, and it is the top priority for not only the project, but New York Transco and all of the work that we do. We've partnered with the IBEW Local 1249 for constructing this project, and they have a very rigorous safety standard that they follow, and our partnership has yielded these excellent outcomes for maintaining a safe and productive workplace. So we're very proud of that. And we recently published something in the Register Star to note that achievement and to refocus our team to make sure that we are prioritizing safety in everything we do each day. So for construction information, we have a number of contractors on site doing various components of work, including JW Dodato, Aldridge, Supreme Industries, McPhee, United Civil, Wellsback, Cruz. All of these folks are out there doing this good work safely and effectively. Typically, our work schedules are Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. There are times where we work outside of those set schedules, but we do need approval from the Department of Public Service in order to proceed. And then we have to notify all key parties in that area if we are working outside of those particular hours. This project has a lot of oversight, as you can imagine, from the state, specifically the Department of Public Service, as well as some of the other state agencies, to ensure that we maintain compliance with all aspects of the project conditions and regulatory approvals. And we provide monthly reports to the Department of Public Service and other state agencies that are involved in this to keep them aware of all of the progress that we're making. This does include any public comments we receive or feedback that we get from stakeholders, abutters, municipalities, anyone and everyone that we touch with the project. And as folks know, project outreach has been a priority for the project since the beginning of our selection. We do have particular requirements for notifying of construction activities. We send out construction notices in the mail, and then we also, these are area specific. And then we also do door knocking ahead of any construction activities to neighborhoods so that they're aware of what's happening at any given time. And I did mention about the work hour, outside of work hour notices. That's something we maintain. We're going to keep the drumbeat going on all of the construction activities. We post this all to our website. We have construction schedules, both current and look aheads, and you can look at all of the archive schedules as well. But we want to make sure that folks are well aware of what's occurring in their area before it happens. So our some good resources for project information as we continue through construction into 2023 is ny-es.com, our website. We also have a toll-free project hotline, 855-433-3611. We have a project email address that goes to us at info@ny-es.com. We have Colin on this call. He's available, as well as Greg, local liaisons that are out there door knocking and talking to folks. And we have an agricultural inspector, Jim Frick, who unfortunately couldn't be on this call, but he's available at any time and has been really coordinating our efforts with all of the agricultural entities along the corridor. And that will continue, and Jim's phone number is up on the screen. Should any of our agricultural operators be on this call, you can always reach him. So I mentioned all of the construction activities that we're doing. There are what we would call, post-construction efforts, but they're really all put in place with this construction program that we're undertaking. One is restoration. I mentioned that we've energized that northern section of the project, the 22 miles from Skodak to Claverick. We are still in the process of restoring that, and we'll be monitoring that restoration as it continues. But you can see an example here in Stockport of where we had the matting down during construction. That's the wooden mats that we put down to travel up and down the right of way with our construction vehicles. And you can see after construction, same viewpoint, we've gone in and started the restoration process. Another component of our post-construction efforts, which is more of a 2024 activity, would be landscape assessments. So for properties that may have had a view shed change, we would go in and determine what that view shed change is, and if there are any appropriate landscaping measures to take. We will do that in 2024. And then unauthorized access prevention. This is a part of it's a condition of our project. So looking for methods and means to put in unauthorized access prevention along the corridor and near any of the transmission assets. And that's something we're working on and would put in place once the project went into service, the full project. So post all of that construction effort. And then the last piece would be the closeout communications. In line with all of the current communications, ongoing communications we've had with all of the project stakeholders, we will do a closeout communication, probably more than one, to note any next steps. And if you need questions answered or have any outstanding issues, how to get in touch with New York Transco as we operate and maintain the project for the long term. I mentioned the website. We have a ton of materials on there to provide more education, answer questions. If there's something you're ever missing, it's up on that website, posted up there. So I encourage you to take a look and poke around. If there's something you can't find or you have an additional question, always reach out to us. And we're happy to answer questions at any point and provide as much information as possible. So with that, I do see that we've had some questions come in. And I'm going to turn it over to John Brott to walk us through those questions.
Thank you, Shannon. I have two questions at this point. The first one is, how much vegetation will actually be removed during the project?
So that's hard to quantify. from a 55-mile project, but there's vegetation removal in the corridor to prepare for construction activities and laying, getting all of our folks in there to do the work safely and efficiently. There's also danger tree work that will come about, that these would be trees that could potentially cause a hazard or a potential threat to the operation, the safe operation and maintenance of the line. But that's something that we have up on our website to showcase some of the vegetation removal. There's actually mapping up there where we have highlighted sections of vegetation removal. And that's something that we've been working on, kind of going down the corridor. Right now, we're not doing vegetation removal. We're in a pause, but that is something that we'll pick up back in the fall. And Court, if there's any, or Colin, if there's anything you want to add to that, please feel free. Court, I think you're muted.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that the construction corridor is the same size it's been for 80 years. It's under the federal regulations. It's required to be maintained in a safe condition to keep trees basically clear of the wires. It's been maintained over all those years, and when we're done, the maintenance will be the same as it has been in the same regulations.
Next question is, will the access paths that you are constructing always be on the west side of the new towers?
Court, I'll give that one to you.
No, they aren't. They are, there may be a number of them that coincidentally happen to be on the west. They're generally placed. We have a limited LOD, limited disturbance, that we can traverse on the right of way that's been prescribed by the New York State Department of Public Service. We go in based on that information, and we have to establish a work zone where we put a level area to establish equipment pads, to put cranes on, and all that are used in the erection of the towers. Many times they will fall on the same side. That may be more convenient to access from the temporary roads that we're putting in, but it's also a function of what part of the terrain requires perhaps the least disturbance to level and turn into a workable surface.
Thanks,
So,
Court.
those are the only questions we have at this point, Shannon.
Okay. If folks would like to ask a question, not type it into the chat or the Q&A, but ask a question, you can raise your hand and we can unmute you. You would also have to unmute yourself, but we'll pause for a second to see if we see any hands pop up for any questions. Okay, I do see a hand pop up, and you just have to unmute yourself now.
Okay, I was the person that asked about the pathways and vegetation removal. I was just curious. I know the DEC is keeping a close eye on this also, and I was just concerned because part of my backyard, which is obviously on your property, that area during the spring has a lot of vernal pools, and that eventually feed a small stream and a small pond, and ultimately wind up in the Wappingers Creek. Now, is that kind of stuff being considered as you lay out your roads?
Or you're trying to.
Yeah, we've put a number of, you see, bridges. We obviously could never obstruct a waterway or anything. We've also put in a number of best management practice environmental processes. You may have seen a lot of the water bars. We've put a lot of areas in where we have made facilities to prevent runoff and erosion in those creeks. Where those creeks are in position, we have some of them are larger than others, where we've actually had to build what would amount to a small bridge over there. But all the waterways are being, and you're right, the DEC not only spent a couple of years reviewing all this and providing us the permits, but put on us a lot of responsibility to maintain this during the construction and renovation process. And they check on it frequently, and we report to them monthly. So yes, you're right, they are very involved.
Okay, all right. Well, I was just concerned because it's kind of it starts as a swampy area that eventually terminates into a small stream. So it's obviously a water source, and I was just curious about that. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And if you have any specific questions or see anything in your area that's of concern, again, those numbers that are on the presentation, and if
Sure.
the numbers there, please let us know. We have people, Jim Frick, our agricultural specialist, and we have people who can respond very quickly. We pride ourselves on our being able to address. We depend on you guys for our eyes on some of this stuff. So anything you see, please let us know.
Okay, thank you. I
Yes, sir.
appreciate that.
Got a couple of more questions in writing, Shannon. This neighbor has noticed a significant increase in dirt bike and ATV traffic on the corridor, particularly on the weekends. And they're asking, what are we doing to monitor and prevent this access?
So this will be a part of the larger plan that we have to put in place for unauthorized access. We are aware of some of these activities. We have notified the police. They're doing extra patrols in areas where it can be seen from public roadways. And obviously our crews and team are looking for this. But a larger plan will be put in place as we get toward the completion of construction.
We have
Corridor,
one.
Colin, sorry, Don. Corridor,
I'm sorry?
Colin, anything else you want to add on that?
Some of that too, Shannon, if there's been an increase in activity too, which I know we've had one or two instances where we've had to contact local law enforcement. And I would not be surprised if some of that kind of diminished as we remove the roadways. These roadways will, when we're done, as you saw in the photos of the restoration, will go away. Gates will go up at roadways, and we're hoping that some of those things will not only provide augmented security to the right of way, but will discourage some of the unauthorized traffic.
But if you are seeing anything in your particular area, we do ask that you give us a phone call or send us an email, because that is something that we can further alert local law enforcement to, as well as our crews. So we would appreciate any information on that comes your way.
It looks like we've got one more written question and someone with their hand up. I think the written question came in first, so I'll jump there. This person is asking, when will the work begin on Salt Point Turnpike? And how long do you think it will take to put up the new structures there?
I do not have that detailed of construction information in front of me at this moment, but we do have your name, and we can follow up with you based on the registration information that you provided to give you more detailed information about that particular area of construction work. Please recognize, obviously, things shift within the schedules, but we can give you an estimation of when we'll be there. And in terms of erection, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, there is, you may notice in the near future, there's some activity there up around 199 by Mile and Hollow Road. We're doing some roadway access at around 199. There is also over on Breezy Hill, around Schultzville Road, some of those areas, they're beginning to build the access from the road, and you're starting to see a presence. There's also an opportunity where you might see people in the area staking these limits of disturbance that I mentioned earlier, the strict limits that the Department of Public Service places on us we have to come out there with survey crews and stake those out. But Shannon does have the contact information, and it would be no problem at all for us to get fairly detailed information on when we'll be in the area of concern, and we can certainly let you know that.
Yeah, and I think in terms of how long will it take to put up the new structures, I mean, they're going at a pretty good clip for getting these structures up. But it's been averaging 3 a day, 2, 3 a day, depending.
Two or three a day, but that's also to be mindful that we'll first be coming in, doing all the environmental protection, the runoff, the slope protection. We reinforce slopes to prevent erosion. We'll have to be building the roadway. The next step in the serial order of things will be to start hauling the pieces of the poles, the arms. They come in probably 15 or 20 discrete pieces. We'll have to be bringing that in. The foundation work, there'll be people coming in and digging the foundation, placing the concrete. And then later crews will come through, assemble the pole and put it up. Next, we'll be coming through, installing the wire, and then eventually we'll be coming through and doing all that restoration, picking things up, seeding, and putting things back just like we found them. But again, if you need durations of any of those individual items, or just like when's the first day I'm going to see and when's the last day, we can certainly help with that.
So we've got a follow-up there. And then John, I think you got a couple of folks with their hands up.
Yep. Why don't we go to Robert Young? Mr. Young,
Yeah.
if you can.
Yes, my question is, I was notified in August of 2020 that a liaison would be contacting me with information and would be contacting me to give me updates, and I've received no contact from anyone except that invitational email saying this was going to happen. So when is the liaison going to be contacting me, since the power lines do go through my property too? And I'd like to have more direct updates. So if someone could please follow up with that and tell me when someone would contact me.
So Mr. Young, just so I'm clear, you've not received any mailed updates since August of 2020, except
Correct.
the exception of the mailer for this particular event.
Correct.
Okay. We'll look into that. We'll have a follow-up. We have your contact information, so we'll give you a shout out as a follow-up from this. Hopefully you've provided either email or phone, and we can set
Okay.
up time to talk with you.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And let's go, let's see, to Mr. Vanderlee. You have another question? Mr. Vandal, excuse me, Mr. Vanderlee, maybe unmute yourself.
Okay. Yes, I live on Breezy Hill Road, so you're my very close neighbor. I mean, you are my neighbor. I do appreciate all the information that you're putting out on this, because obviously it's been, interesting to us, to say the least. Okay, you're also doing work right now on where you cross Hollow Road and Center Road right now, down there in Clinton Hollow. And I noticed that a lot of stone is getting put down. Is that going to be removed when you do the remediation?
Absolutely. It will all come up. The roadways, there'll be some areas that are stone in the uplands, and then you'll see a lot of wood matting going in.
Right.
And I can find out exactly, it's on the plans that are filed with the Department of Public Service, but I can get exact details. But the big picture in most areas is that everything we put down comes up. periodically.
That's all I wanted to know, really.
Yeah.
Thank you, and I
And
appreciate it.
I know, because literally I am your neighbor, and
Oh,
if you do, yeah, and I hang out there at the Golden Russet, so
oh, okay.
yeah. So if you do have any specific questions about your area, let me know. I'm there every day. I'm more than happy to meet you sometime and walk you through what we're doing. I can get the people that are doing the stone work, and we can get all the stuff. Never hesitate to contact if you have any questions.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think you've answered my question. I appreciate that.
Very
Thank you.
good. Thank you, sir.
All right, I'm going to jump back to some written questions. We have a question on when do the existing lattice towers come down?
So it's a process where we drill the foundation for the new, erect the new structures, string the wire using the existing lattice structures that are out there. And then once the wire is all strung, we take those old ones down. So it's a process that occurs once the new ones go up.
It's a little bit of an unusual process here too, because one of our goals has been, and not only a goal, but a requirement, is to maintain power at all times. And removing 55 miles of power line with 22 stations along the way without interrupting power is a challenge. So what we're doing, and I'll be very brief about the process, we are taking small sections of the wire out of service, which allow us to feed all the local substations from two directions. So if one is in peril, we still have a second feed. And then what we do is we transfer that wire when we take it out of, when we de-energize it, we move the old wire onto the new pole, and then we tear down the old tower. And there are a couple ways it will just, and then we recycle. It'll be gone generally the day we take it down. We cut it into small pieces and it's taken off and recycled. And then we use the old wire actually pull in the pulling lines that we'll use to put the new wire in. So I don't know if you have, again, specific questions about when certain towers are going to come down, again, we can help you with that. Or if you need us to let you know, that's not a problem.
Great. Let's jump back to a live question. We have a question from Kate Keeler. Ms. Keeler, if you can unmute yourself. And go ahead. Ms. Keeler, have you unmuted? Okay. We can't hear you. Why don't we do this? We'll jump back to one of the written questions. Ms. Keeler, if you'd like to submit your question in writing through the Q&A function, we'll be happy to get to it, or we can come back to you and try again here in just a minute. Next written question says, it's haymaking season. There are a lot of pockets of hay left uncut due to lack of access. Is there a plan to reimburse farmers for the loss of the hay?
So with our agricultural inspector, he's been working closely with the farmers along the corridor to ensure that there is access. And if there is an area where there's a challenge for access, we would ask that we get your information so he can reach out to you, or ask that you reach out to him. We do know that there's been quite a bit of hay harvested along the corridor, both on the main corridor line and that, as well as the Blue Stores tap line. So we have put in those agricultural crossings and access points. If there's some area that has been overlooked or that was not considered, we'd appreciate reaching out and having a conversation about that. That's what Jim, our agricultural inspector, focuses on.
Great. Maybe we'll jump back to Ms. Keeler.
Oh, she wrote it in, John.
Oh, I'm sorry. Great. So Ms. Keeler's question is, how do you determine what is a danger tree? I have several tall trees that border the towers that are healthy and straight. And in the past, they have just been trimmed on the tower side. So how do you determine what is a danger tree?
Yeah, so there is a requirement based on federal code for what determines danger trees. And that's something that our operations and maintenance folks are working on, identifying those danger trees. And we will be reaching out in the very near future, actually, to talk to folks that are along the corridor, if we have identified a danger tree, to talk about what the proper remediation effort is to mitigate that tree from potentially causing a hazard to the transmission infrastructure. So if you have something that we've identified, we'll be in touch with you. But that process is yet to begin. So that's coming up.
See any other questions at this point, Shannon?
Okay, well, why don't we give it a minute or so and see if anybody else has something that pops up. If you do think of something following this webinar that you do have a question about, you can see on the screen our toll-free number, as well as the email address that goes to us. We're happy to respond, and we do have a couple of follow-ups from this webinar that we'll take, and you'll be hearing from us. But please don't hesitate to reach out at any time. We want to be as helpful as possible and help navigate all of our neighbors through this process now and into the future as we operate and maintain the assets once they're put in service. Okay, I'm not seeing any additional questions coming up or hands being raised. Oh, I think, do we get anything else? Nope. No other questions are coming through. So we just want to say thank you to all of you that participated. Thank you for the questions and comments that you've made tonight. We do appreciate those. And as mentioned, we will be following up. We look forward to continuing to keep you informed on the progress that we're making with this critical transmission project. We have more work to go, but we're making great progress to hit the 2023 in service date, end of 2023 in service date. And we look forward to continuing communication and facilitating a dialogue with all of our neighbors along the corridor. So we will be back in touch very soon with updates on our efforts. And at any point in time, if you have questions, please reach out. We're here to help. So thank you for
Shannon,
joining.
if I may, we do have one person who's called in, and so they wouldn't be able to raise their hand, but they can do that if they press *9, and then we can unmute them. If the caller by phone has a question, they can press *9.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. Okay, I don't think that they've pressed it. So we'll just take another moment to say thank you. We appreciate the time you've taken out of your evening for us. We look forward to speaking with you again in the near future. And please reach out if there's at any point, if there are questions or there's anything we can help with. Thank you and have a great evening.